Good evening, good morning, and welcome. This is Tavo D'Arcy talking on authority in another bio of my long-term memory of grassroots growing up in ministry after being a pastor's daughter, and called to study the body of Christ doctrines, males and females, spirit-filled or not, since 1976. And then I was traveling later through my life, ended up in many places. I'm a cosmopolitan person best, but I was living in rural Virginia when I was talking about part 10, where I said I promised, but I never got to it, about hearing people calling fellow ministers in an area, grassroots area, false prophets. It's the thing to do in certain groups, the certain culture of ministry. Not my kind, I didn't come from that, but I learned about it. So back in the day when I was in Central Virginia, I'd lived in, grown up a pastor's daughter, and they were very cultured, and we lived in Norfolk, Virginia, and then I got married, and we went back to Central Virginia. And during that time, I lived in the city more and was friends or, in ministry, on my own ministry, encouraging word back then, a prayer ministry, praying prayer protection, but also relationships, networking, teaching Bible, and encouraging as well. Prior to the big day of media, but it just started. So I ended up meeting people in the area, both urban and suburban. Would we take turns going to the churches? I got invited to be under a nonprofit called Umpire, which is like Crossbody Unity. And they were older, and they were wonderful people. Crossbody, Umpire stood for something like an acronym of about unity. And we would go through the black and white reconciliation of Christian ministries, different things going on, and I always participated for many years. Well, then we relocated. The Lord led us to go out toward Midlothian, which is then in the county more, and I ended up meeting people that were around the area that were in the more country, turned out Levitical patriarch movement. I didn't know all about it. You can have people that are word of faith, and even though the top word of faith people are not LP, they're people at the grassroots anywhere could be this, pastors in Charismatica. Pentecostals can be that way. Assembly of God can have LP. And I had been trained, I had been given the opportunity to teach and go to an Assembly of God that was not noticeably LP. It was quiet. It was white. And they were very not like the good old boy kind. So there's within every movement, Baptist, black, white, you can have great people, and you can have people with true and false doctrine and mixture. Well-intentioned usually. So I had moved toward the county, and I had no clue I was in a hot spot of LP in hindsight. When I was out in ministry as a white female, never thought of I never cared. Our family ain't like that. We're not racist, gender biased. If you're good at something, God calls you to do it. So I was out in ministry, charismatic ministry, and the husband was not. He was in business, had 2 children. He said, yeah, whatever God says, do it. And that's all I did. I didn't know, because I had been around all these other pastors that were not LP. I didn't know I had to be accountable and under somebody or them, that I was going to be watched. I was going to be jumped in public, accused of being unsubmitted to authority, theirs, and that I would find out that they did it to 30 others. Gunshot, knee-jerk reaction. I wrote the Ode to Whelp out of frustration after the decade. That was in early 90s, mid-90s, late 90s. Well, my mother had a friend. They did it to her. She was a single mom. Turns out I believe they target strong women, alone women. Now, see, people would see me alone, but I'd be sent out, and husband and board, family, my family were just like that. We don't care. We're not thinking like that. We're thinking we're on a mission. So if you have a bone to pick, if you're that nosy, well, see, then I never knew vocabulary. I'd be sent around by the Lord. Husband said, that's fine. I'll keep the children tonight if you feel led to go. And I would go to revival. So Word of Faith came to town and I'd be seen. I didn't know I'd been watched. This is how it happens. Small town. And so I would be seen out and about. And I didn't know it was a big deal to keep track of somebody like that, but they do. And I was being named a church hopper. So in 1998, I'd never heard that vocabulary, never knew it existed. It's big in mega, cosmopolitan, charismatic, and micro. This is micro turf. So when I went to another pastor's meeting in the county with an Assembly of God, with a Word of Faith and a prophetic, those are the main three that do it at grassroots, right? I didn't know it was their business. I'm an official professional coming from many pastors and leaders and professional strength, just timid and younger than they. I didn't know all this. So I was standing there and I heard these older men, gentlemen, they were the pastors. I was not at the time. I was ordained in 1996, but I was under them. I had a whole network of Society of Ministers, more black and white than they. They didn't know my group, and I didn't know that you could be targeted by their reading of your vibe or your whatever. So we learned a lot of things many times over since, even worse. But that was the first, and I didn't know what I was picking up. I thought, what is this? They're younger. I respect them. They're older than me. They're the pastors, and they call themselves the apostles. That's where it gets big in small towns. They're calling themselves the apostle, the prophet, like you see on TV. And I don't do that because it's not a Baptist, it's not a servant leader. It's not servant leader. Vineyards don't do that. And I was fine with Vineyard. They don't do that. They're spirit-filled. But we just had to grow. We just had to learn. So I was standing at the back of the meeting in 1998, and I heard the Assembly of God tell the Word of Faith, the craggy Assembly of God, the craggy Word of Faith. You could have the big church wasn't craggy. He was nice. It depends upon the group and their style and their core doctrine of authority. It's an authority doctrine of control. I didn't know it till now, back then. So I heard the Assembly of God, who was hosting the meeting in a small church of 200, talking to the Word of Faith person who had 35, but tough as nails, tough authoritarian. And I heard them say, I saw your sheep in my church the other day. And I couldn't help but hear. I went, what? And the other man said, yes, they're church hoppers. I had never heard that. I went, wow. Do you think they own God's people? It's a sin to go from one more. Yes, it is a sin. Most Christians, especially white, I don't know if African Americans are this bad, but it was our sheep. And that is, to me, a sign, a red flag right now. Well, in that kind of group, the small, I was with the micro, and later I was with the mega and the charismatic multi-campus, and I can read, I've been around, and giant and big celebrity as well. And I was part of pastors' organizations and had many things, experiences nobody would know unless you talked to me. So I could hear, you can't, the scuttlebutt of an area is small, everybody watches every business, and in big. But then you realize that the fad is to call these kind, the white, charismatic, not against them, but now I heard too many in my life many times, and even people that are in like other states or Florida when I traveled, they're false prophets, they're false teachers. Now we got them on TMZ making money off that, putting their faces to get income off of it. The new form of prosperity teaching, bash somebody for cash with a video that's monetized. But I didn't know, and now I do, it's part of human nature to put down somebody to make yourself feel better. I don't do that. My identity is not in myself. It's not nice. I was raised with pure-hearted Christian leader pastors who were servant leader and didn't do that. But I could not tell how many people that have called me or you false teachers. More to come. I'm running out of time on this one too.